Hi, I'm Lena Yaisley with the Triangle Homeschool Resource Center, and I want to talk to you a little bit about planning for your homeschool year. I was sitting down today to start planning for my kids' school year, and I get really excited about planning. And I know when you're a new homeschooler, it can be really intimidating. So I just kind of want to help you be excited about it and share my tips and what works for us and kind of how we do it. Because sometimes when you see what somebody else does, it gets the wheels turning and maybe you'll figure out what's going to work well for you. So my number one tip for planning for your homeschool year is to really think about your long-term goals. What are you doing this whole homeschooling thing for? What do you want out of it at the end of your journey? And that really helps be a guidepost. If you aim toward that in all your planning, in your curriculum choices, in your activities, what you decide to join or not join or take on as extra or not, it really makes things clear when you know whether or not they're getting you towards your long-term goals. So I have this little sheet that I used for a long time. Kind of these topics, I just kept them in a notebook, but I kind of prettied them up so that I could share it with you and you could have the same kind of layout and some ideas to kind of get you started on your planning journey. So this is our homeschool goals. And up here you can see I'll fill in our long-term goals. We need to kind of sit down as a family and discuss that every year. We decide, are we still heading in the same direction? And do we still want the same things or what has changed? And then that helps us decide, so what are our goals for this year? And we're still talking about, our overall philosophy. What do we want at the end of this year? And then that helps us to choose curriculum in line with that. And then we know where we need to be with that curriculum. And then we can divide that down by semester and then by quarter. And that kind of helps guide my year and guide my planning from there on out. And that's where I start every year as I sit down. So my next step is to kind of look at our family calendar and say, okay, when are we starting our school year? When do we want to be done? When do we want to fit in the end of year testing? When are we taking some breaks? We've got some family holidays, some trips coming up. Usually, this is actually really late for me. Our family usually starts the first week in August. But my oldest has some things coming up this year. He's not going to be around for part of August, and he has heaven help me driver's ed at the end of the month. So we're going to lose a week that way. So I really won't start our schedule until Labor Day. And then we'd like to be done by mid-June. So those are my weeks. So then I look at our family calendar. What other weeks are we going to be missing? What about around the holidays? And I count up how many weeks we have from the beginning of September, for example, for us, to mid-June. And that's how many weeks I'm working with. And then you divide it in half for your semesters. Mark when you want a semester end, and then in half again, and figure out what your quarter dates are. And then those are really what I aim for, are the quarters. And that's when I stop and evaluate and see what's working, what's not working. And that's where I head to. So, for example, my family is going to be doing, analytical grammar this year. So that's this grammar curriculum. My kids, by the way, are going into 9th grade and going into 7th grade, and I have a toddler. So that's who I'm planning for. My big kids do as much as possible together. Just makes it easier on all of us. They learn from each other, and it works out really well. So it gives me less planning to do. So it's not so overwhelming right now. But analytical grammar, the reason I'm using this as an example, let's see if you can see that. On their website, they have this nice little downloadable calendar. And I know it's kind of quick, but they divide it up into 36 weeks or 36 lessons. So I'll look at how many weeks we have coming up and spread 36 lessons across that. And I think most packaged curriculum you'll find fits into 36 weeks somewhere between 36 and 40. So we kind of divide it up that way. And I start laying it out. What are my goals? Where do we need to be? So let's see, if you're planning for younger kids, maybe it's not a whole curriculum. Maybe it's not a whole package. Maybe it's just a workbook you're looking at and thinking, how much, can I expect to get done, or how long should it take them to do? And you know what? The answer is you might not know yet. Let them start at it. Let them set them loose and let them play school at it for a little while and see how fast they go. See if they enjoy it. If they don't enjoy it, maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to scrap it and go to something else. But when you're planning, you might not be able to start out and say, okay, we want to do a workbook page a day or 2 pages a day, until you know whether or not they take to that style. So that's something to think about. You might not be able to start and plan out your year, how many weeks or whatever, until you have an idea really of how your child is going to work. So those are some of the tips about kind of just figuring out your schedule, figuring out how much work you're going to have for a particular curriculum in any given semester or quarter or week of your homeschool year. So it helps to then take your curriculum and say, okay, I would like to get about this much done of each curriculum per week. And honestly, that's about as far as I take my planning for the whole year. When I first started, of course, I sat down and worked out a year. I have these lesson planner books. You can get these at Target. I'm pretty sure I got this at the dollar spot at Target for a couple of bucks, and it looks like your typical lesson planner book that you'd find in a school. I'm sure these are very handy for teachers. They didn't work so well for me. I think I got to October and scrapped the whole thing because we were so far off of my plans. We were just doing different things. We were chasing rabbit trails and getting interested in things we didn't expect to get interested in, and taking longer on books we wanted to take. And the workbooks that I thought were going to take my kids a whole year to do, they were done in 2 months because they just thought they were so fun. So, I learned to kind of slow down and watch and listen. And now I really break it down week by week, or a week at a time, just at the beginning of the week. Sunday night, I sit down and do a lot of my planning. So if you want to look ahead, though, a month-by-month planner can be really helpful. So month by month, when my kids were younger, we would pick topics. So let's say we wanted to do apples in September, and we wanted to do pumpkins and harvest in October, and we wanted to talk about the pilgrims in November. I would go ahead and write those things down on a month-by-month planner, and then in my spare time, I would research materials to use for those topics, and I'd gather them in a file folder at my desk or in a folder on my computer. And then when the beginning of the month came, I had a bunch of stuff to pull from to start, coming up with to-do lists. And we used little drawers at the end of our desk. Each kid had a drawer, and then the bottom drawer was for their finished work. And at the beginning of the day, I would print it out all at the beginning of the week, but at the beginning of the day, I'd put their stuff in their drawer, and those were the worksheets or the things that we had to do. And I had my own to-do list for the day, what we were going to read or what we were going to talk about, what science experiments we were going to do, that kind of thing. And that's how I planned those little topics for when they were younger. And that worked out really well. We learned a lot and we enjoyed it. So this month-by-month sheet, again, you'll see is a little different for me now. This is my master family calendar. This goes in the front of my mom binder. Oh, I have to show you that. I love that tool of mine. So this goes in the front of my mom binder, and as you can see, I just start to mark off important dates as they come up. So when I sit down and do my weekly plans, I can look and say, oh, we're going to lose Friday this week because somebody's off on a trip, or, oh, we have a field trip on Wednesday, so I'm going to plan around Wednesday. And then that's how I plan my weekly lessons. So like I said, that's what I do. I sit down week by week on a Sunday evening, knowing, keeping my overall goals in mind, knowing about how much I have to cover in each curriculum. And then I have my weekly planner. So again, when my kids were younger, this was, my to-do list. This is how I would divide up what I wanted to do. So I went the days of the week, and there's subjects down the side, and maybe it was I might have 2 maths because I had, the 2 kids, and but everything else we kind of did together. And it became my to-do list of what we're going to cover each week. I'd make notes about what I had to print out, what things I might need to reserve at the library, and I'd look a week or 2 ahead and make notes. Okay, for 2 weeks from now, I need a book about, making an apple pie across the USA. I know that's a really popular book, and I forget the title of it right now. But I would say, reserve that now because I'm going to need it 2 weeks from now, and that really helped me plan. So this is an example from last year. So now these are my big kids' own to-do lists. So I put the date. I know that we're on week 28. So if the curriculum is divided into 36 weeks, I can very easily look at its week 28 and know exactly where I'm pulling from. And if we miss a week, then, it's just no big deal. I'm not worried about the particular date on the calendar. I put my kid's initial up in the top so I know whose binder that goes in at the beginning of the week with all their worksheets and printables and stuff. And that's it. I put their subjects down, do what they do. There's some things we do every day, like math. Their geography program was kind of every day there. But, history, we did a history unit study. We covered that 2 days a week, and then the opposite 2 days a week, we did science videos at this point in time of the year. And then, you'll notice most of Friday is blank. We try to condense our school weeks into 4-day weeks, and that gives us a day for appointments and errands and field trips and friends. And that has worked really well for us the past few years. And then at the bottom, this was my keep mom on task. What time we had to leave the house every night for our evening activities. And then I knew when we had to be done and what was coming next. So that's what has worked for us. And that is what I'm working with for planning this year. As I said, we've got this analytical grammar, which is hopefully going to work really well for us. I found it through a lot of recommendations, and both my kids will be doing that. We have our geography program, which we started this year, Trail Guide to World Geography. We've really liked, so we're going to pick that up where we left off. We started kind of mid-year, so we're at about week 22, week 23, and we'll pick that up and finish the 36 weeks at the beginning of this year. So the other thing I was mentioned is my mom's notebook. This is one of my favorite resources for planning. In here, I keep all of my ideas. When we started planning for high school, for my oldest, I started looking for what kinds of curriculum, kinds of things we wanted to use. And I made these sheets, and I color code everything. The other thing here on my table is my colored pens. When I plan, I love to color code everything, and it makes it exciting. It makes me get really excited about our school year, and that rubs off on the kids. So let's see. So here's a sheet of notes I made about math. I don't know if you can see that really well, but so I looked at different math curriculums that I saw recommended in lots of Facebook groups. There's a great Facebook group called It's Not That Hard to Homeschool High School. And there is one, North Carolina Homeschooling for College Credit. Great resources to follow if you're looking at planning high school. And I made notes of each curriculum and little pluses and minuses for the pros and cons. And then as I came across them during the year, I just added a little box to that sheet, and that became my master plan. So, and now that I have a younger one coming up and we're getting ready, when he starts kindergarten, my oldest will be a senior and my middle one will be a sophomore, and I'll be starting over. So I forget a lot of what we did when they were younger, and he's a different kid, so different things are going to work for him. So I've started gathering resources kind of the same way. So I have sheets in that binder for early elementary, preschool, even toddler activities, because we definitely want to keep him a little busier this year so we can get our work done as a family. So those are my planning resources. I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some ideas. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments, or you can send me an email anytime. It's Laina, Laina, at trianglehomeschoolresources.com.